Good evening, everyone. We continue into First Kings chapter 15. Now, as the narrative moves from 14 to 15, there are some new elements that I think we would all learn with regards to timing, with regards to calendar. In the old days, there is no such thing called um, the 1,200 years before the Common Era. All these modern day dating does not exist. When you are placed in your environment within the Israelites' history, you have to then make reference of time and calendar with regards to some major events. Now, in the Eastern way of looking at things, uh, and we are looking at the Israelite, the Hebrew people here, you can also look at the Chinese way of calibrating the calendar. It is always with regards to the ascension of kings. And so let's begin in chapter 15 to review a couple of things so that we have a better idea of how the calendar is done. Now, yesterday we had Jeroboam and Rehoboam starting the reign. All right. And so we'll plot this here and we'll leave this on the screen. We have here in First Kings chapter 14 and in verse 20, this would be Jeroboam. And Jeroboam reigned for 22 years. So we would use this as a yardstick, 22 years. And this is Jeroboam. At the same time, we have First Kings chapter 14, verse 21. And we have Rehoboam. But Rehoboam reigned for 17 years. And that is where we would start today. So let's begin. It says, now in the 18th year of King Rehoboam, the son of Nevat, Aviam became king over Judah. And the way that we will recognize this is that in the 18th year, which is right here, we have Aviam. And then it says here, he reigned for 3 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Avishalom. And so you can count 3 years. Now, whenever we say 3 years, it would be like this: one, two, and three. So any time within the third year is considered part of the 3 years. And so, as you can tell, what we have here would be sometime in the, let's say, 3 years would be around here, right? 3 years. And in these 3 years, it would be somewhere in the 20th year. Somewhere in the 20th year. And from here onwards, there will be somebody new that would take over. So I'm just trying to show you how calendars in the Hebrew calendar is being done. So it says he walked in all the sins of his father, which he had committed before him. What are the sins of his father, uh, uh, Rehoboam? that would be idolatry as well. And we read that at the end of chapter 14. His heart was not wholly devoted to the Lord, his God. It says wholly devoted. The word here is shalem. Shalem means complete. The heart is not complete. That's what it says, complete. And this word wholly devoted literally means complete with God. What do you mean not complete with God? It means that there he is not totally loyal to God. The decisions he made was not always about God. And then we are told this is unlike the heart of his father David. This would be man after, and this would be following God's heart, right? God's heart. It would mean that the heart or the decisions of Aviam was not quite like David, and he wasn't complete. It wasn't complete means not that he is uh totally denying or disobeying God. He still obeys God and follows, but it's not completely following. That's the picture we are getting. The idea of shalem means this: when you owe somebody money and you don't fully pay up, that means that you have not shalem the payment. And so when you don't shalem the payment, you have not completed repayment. And so you are still owing, and there is no shalom. When you tell God that you are going to do certain things as an oath, and you do it, and once you finish doing it, then that is shalem. And hence that person will have shalom with God. So I hope that you can see the play of words with the word wholly devoted. It means that he is not completely devoted to God. He is not dedicated to God all the time. That's what it means. In verse 4, but for David's sake, the Lord gave him a lamp in Jerusalem to raise a son after him and to establish Jerusalem. You need to understand this is 2 Samuel chapter 7. This is what it means with the Davidic covenant. The Davidic covenant is with David. So it says, for David's sake, the Lord gave him a lamp in Jerusalem. Now, the idea of a lamp uh, means that there is still continuity of dynasty. The family name of David is continued. And so he would raise up his son after him, which is following, to establish Jerusalem as the throne of Judah. And so 2 Samuel chapter 7 will be fulfilled and will continue to be upheld by God. Verse 5. Because David did what was right in the sight of the Lord. Now, this is important. Always, what is right, yashar, straight, and that would mean that it is in the right path of God. So you find things like good, evil, right, wrong. These are all very Hebrew concepts, and it's always in the eyes of the beholder. In this case, the beholder is God, And God looks at what David had done, and David is said to be straight with God. As God looks at him, he has done everything that God is happy with. Yes, there were some dark situations. For example, in the situation with Uriah. And so it says here, he did not deviate. The word deviate means to turn aside from anything that God commanded him all the days of his life. The idea here is that God commanded him to do things, he did. Now, with the case of Uriah, that has nothing to do with God. That has everything to do with David. David decided on his own, and he made that mistake in life. But with regards to the commands that God gave him for war, for example, he followed everything to the letter. And so it is said here David did what was straight in the sight of God, in the eyes of God, as opposed to Saul, who did not. Now, did Saul not do everything? Yes, Saul did not shalem. He did some, but did not do the rest. In the eyes of God, when you do some and not all, it is as good as not doing it at all. God doesn't give the kings any empowerment to change God's instructions, and thereby to show the kings that God is absolute above the king. And as such, we read of these statements, they're not shalem, are not complete, not totally dedicated. It means that there were times that they were somewhat dedicated, somewhat loyal. So, in the case of Saul, God told him to do five things and he did three, and he thought that he had done well. And God says, that's not what I want you to do. I want you to do all. And so God says, I don't want you as king anymore. I'm going to find someone who is after my heart, and that's David. And that's what it states here. Verse 6, and there was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of his life. The war started in the fifth year. So let me just draw it here in the picture here. For 5 years there was peace. After that, there was war, all the way to the end of the life of Rehoboam. And that's what it says. There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of his life. And we're talking about the descendants of David. So Rehoboam is his life. Because after Rehoboam, Aviam took over, and there was war at that point in time. Verse 7. It says, for the rest of the acts of Aviam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Yehudah? And there was war between Aviam and Jeroboam. And so now we will plot in here again. So war continued in the days of Aviam. So that's what we're trying to do, is to fill in the blanks. Whenever we talk about war, this would be the civil war, right? The North and the South. And Aviam lay down with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David, and his son Asa became king in his place. And so we find this Aviam is over. Then we have Asa that took over from Aviam. So very quickly we see, so in the 20th year of Jeroboam, the king of Israel, Asa began to reign as king of Judah. And so this is what we do in the 20th year, which is right here. Asa begins his reign. And he reigned for 41 years in Jerusalem. and his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Avishalom. So what are we going to draw here is this line is pretty long. So from here on, there will be some 41 years. And Asa would reign that long. And he started in the 20th year of Jeroboam, right here, where Jeroboam was still king. So what you notice is that you find that the plot of time is at a time when Aviam came on. It would be in the 18th year. He reigned for 3 years. 3 years means part of the 3 years in year 20, Asa came on as king. And so there will be almost 2 years left in Jeroboam's reign. The description we find is Asa did what was right in the sight of the Lord, like his father David. Right is straight, meaning as God has required him to do, he did as the instructions. Verse 12. Verse 12 tells us that he removed uh, adultery, or adulterers from the land, and he removed the idols which his fathers had made. Now understand that these are idols. Idols comes from the word gilu. Basically, they are in the form of, I guess, something that is like a stump, like a mound of some sort, like a stump. And what they do with idols is people would run around or jump around or dance around in that form of a idol worship, right? In the form of an idol worship around a stump. And it says that all his fathers who did this, then it would be Abiam and Rehoboam, right? Rehoboam. And even his mother, Maacah, he also removed her from the position of queen mother. Why? Because she had made an abominable image as an Asherah, which is a tree, and Asa cut down her abominable image and burned it at the brook Kidron. So the Kidron Valley would be at the eastern side of the valley between Jerusalem and Mount of Olives. So Asa really removed all the abominable image. So abominable, you can say that it is uh, this would be, how should we say, um, an idol, an image. Abominable image is an idol, and the Asherah, basically, that's what it means, an Asherah. Uh, and all of these. And so the Asherah was cut down. And Asherah in this case would be something that stands up very high. And it was chopped down, and it is made of wood. And then it was burned at the Kidron. And that would be uh, this brook Kidron is actually in between the Mount of Olives and Jerusalem. And it's in the valley below here, the Kidron Valley. So the Kidron Valley was just next to Jerusalem, and this is to symbolize the removal of all abominable objects. right? Abominable objects. Now, in verse 14, it says the high places, and these were altars that were located in the hills, were not eliminated. Now, the word eliminated means they were not turned aside, they were not abolished, right? Abolished. However, it says Asa's heart was wholly devoted to God. The word wholly devoted says that he was shalem to the Lord all his days. And so, one of the challenges that people would have to think about, even though uh, there were high places that were still there, these were the private altars. Private altars were not removed. And the they were there in the early days at the time of Shiloh. But after Jerusalem was appointed the place, there will be no more Bama, no more high places, no more altars. But they were reintroduced by Solomon, and then by Rehoboam, and then by Abiyam. And in the time of Asa, they were not removed, uh, but we were not told whether it was used. Now, not removed literally mean abolished, um, and I guess you could say that the word here is to be avoided, to be removed, and they were not, right? They were not. In verse 15, Asa brought into the house of the Lord, this would be the temple, the holy gifts of his father and his own holy gifts. Now, what do you mean the holy gifts? The idea here would be things that were special, they are consecrated. I think that would be the word to use here. They are consecrated gifts. These are the things that is in the palace, things of silver, gold, and valuable vessels. Utensils here are vessels. They would be the implements, the plates, the bowls, right? And then it says here again in 16, there was a war between Asa and Baasha. Baasha, the king of Israel, all their days. Now, where did Baasha come about? So we are about to look at what is happening with Baasha. Baasha is the king of Israel, which is north. And let me just put the name down because we are not told when he came into the picture. And we're told that Baasha, the king of Israel, marched against Judah and fortified Ramah in order to prevent anyone from going out or coming in to Asa, king of Judah. So we do have war sometime here. But we will plot because the Bible does tell us more information. In verse 18, Asa took all the silver and the gold that was left in the treasuries in the house of the Lord and the treasuries of the king's house, the palace, and handed it to his servants. And King Asa sent them to Ben Hadad, the son of Tabrimon, the son of Hezion, the king of Aram, who lived in Damascus. And so what we're seeing here is Asa is Judah, Ben Hadad is Syria, and they are about to have a treaty. And these silver and gold that was in the temple and the palace was given to Ben-Hadad as a gift. He says, let us make a treaty between you and me. Now, in verse 19, we are told of a covenant. This word treaty is a covenant. It is a berit. The English likes to modify words, so it could be covenant, testament, agreement, and in this case, treaty between you, Ben-Hadad, and me, Asa, as there was between my father and your father. It says, behold, I have sent you a gift of silver and gold. Now, this word gift can also be understood as a present. It is also bribe. Basically, is to tell Ben-Hadad, I'm going to give you all these good stuff. And then you go and break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, so that he will withdraw from me. And so what we find is that Baasha has a treaty with Ben-Hadad. So I will put it here, Ben-Hadad. And in so doing, Baasha was bold to take war with Asa. Now, Asa wants to tell Ben-Hadad, I'll just give you some money and then you just go away. And so that is more proper to say a bribe rather than a gift, because he was told to break. Now, this word break is from the word para. Para comes from the word par. So we have this word, break your berit, break your covenant, right? Break your covenant. So this word break comes from the word para, which comes from the word par, which means ox. And so when you have an ox, and the ox actually step on the wheat, and when you step on the wheat, it breaks and it becomes chaff. And then you have wheat and chaff. So what basically you find is that this word para literally means to step on and break. So it's not like breaking a promise. It's not like breaking a word. Hebrew has a more concrete meaning. Breaking the covenant, breaking the law, literally means to step on it, and this means that you are treating the berit of no value, and then you just walk away. And so breaking the law is also to like stepping on it. It says, I don't care, right? It's irrelevant to me and it's useless to me. And that would be treating the law of God, the Torah, as no value. And so this idea of break means to step and break and treat as no value. That is the meaning of the word. Now in verse 20, we say that Ben-Hadad, he listened to King Asa. Listen means he hear what Asa is offering, and it's okay. So he says he sent the commanders of his armies against the cities of Israel and conquered a couple of places. Conquered Ion, conquered Dan, conquered this is Avel, Beit Maakah, and all of Kinneret, which is the southeast. Kinneret is the southeast of the Sea of Galilee, besides all the land of Naphtali, which is at the Galilee region. So, what did Ben Hadad do? He took the bride from King Asa, and he broke the treaty with Baasha, and he went and conquered the lands of Israel. And in the northern part, basically, Eon, Dan would be way up north, Kinneret, and the land of Naphtali. And then when Baasha heard about it, because he was attacking Asa, he stopped fortifying Ramah and remained in Tirzah, where the father had built the palace. In verse 22, we now read that, and King Asa made a proclamation to all Judah, like all Israel, there's all Judah, and all Judah would include every of the tribe in the south. That would be Benjamin, Judah, and they says no one was exempt. And they carried away the stones of Ramah, which was a fortified place, which is slightly north of Jerusalem. Its timber, which Baasha had built fortification, and King Asa built them the Gevah of Benjamin and Mitzpah. Now, in verse 22, where it says the Gevah, Gevah actually is how should we say? It is a place, right? It is a location. Uh, it is most likely Gibeah, which is in the area of Benjamin, right? In the area of Benjamin. And build means rebuild, because Gibeah or Geva is already there. So it made it even better with all the timber and all the stones, and it built it into a bigger city. And as for the rest of all the acts of Asa and all his might, what he did, the cities which he built, one of this is Givah. Was it not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Yehudah? And by the time of his old age, he was diseased in his feet. So he had a foot ailment, right? He has a foot ailment. Verse 24, Asa laid down with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of the father David, and his son Jehoshaphat reigned in his place. So we find Jehoshaphat right here. The continuation, which we will continue tomorrow. This is Jehoshaphat. Now we come to verse 25. 25 goes back to the northern kingdom. It says Nadav, the son of Jeroboam, became king over Israel in the second year of Asa, king of Judah, which is right here. And in this case, this would be Nadav. Nadav is the son of Jeroboam. And he reigned only 2 years. Right here. 2 years. And then Baasha took over. And that's how we read this. In the second year of Asa, this would be the second year here. Then Nadav became king. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. Now, again, you see, evil, good, evil is always in the eyes of the beholder. It is not an abstract thing, it is seen, right? It is always seen. And he walked in the way of his father and in the sin into which he misled Israel. Now, the idea of misled Israel literally means caused Israel to sin. And this is about idol worship, where Jeroboam had introduced new feasts, new priests, new altars, new gods, and made them, the people, unknowingly or unintentionally, since the king said so, uh, the people of Israel, the north, went and did exactly what the king wanted, and they too sinned. 27. And then Baasha, the son of Ahiah, of the house of Issachar, conspired against him. Now, 27 is interesting because this idea, conspired, literally means to bind together, to become in league against Nadav. Right? Him is Nadav. And Baasha struck and killed him at uh, Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines, while Nadav and all Israel were laying siege to Gibbethon. So Nadav was fighting, and in this case, he was fighting Asa, right? And so Baasha killed him in the third year of Asa, king of Judah, and reigned in his place. And so this is what we have. Baasha starts here, and this would, we can say this is the third year of Asa. And so we have now the final picture. Verse 29, as soon as he was king, he would be Baasha. This is Baasha. He struck and killed all the household of Jeroboam. He did not leave Jeroboam any persons alive. He did not leave anyone alive, as in verse 29, until he had eliminated. And this word eliminate is to exterminate. Exterminate all of the house of Jeroboam in accordance to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by his servant Ahijah the Shilonite. Remember yesterday when we were talking about the wife of Jeroboam went to pretend and disguise herself to look for Ahijah. God spoke to Ahijah to tell her to tell Jeroboam that everyone in the family will die. And so what we have now is we have Jeroboam dying, we have Nadav dying, and that is the end. From this, from Ephraim, that's where Jeroboam and Nadav come from. Then Baasha comes from Issachar, a different tribe. Verse 30, and because of the sins of Jeroboam, which he sinned, right? These are the English modification of words, and into which he misled Israel, caused Israel to sin. Because of his provocation, which he provoked the Lord to anger. Now, the idea here of provoking uh, is to cause God to be angry, to cause God to have wrath. So the idea of provoke is to cause God to anger. And when he says it caused God to anger, this would be an action of Jeroboam. It is the action of Nadav. And that's how it is seen in the text. Verse 31, As for the rest of the acts of Nadav and all that he did, were they not written in the book of Chronicles, the kings of Israel? And so we don't have these books, both the kings of Israel and the king of Judah. Then it says, verse 32, there was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. So we can say here it is war ongoing. So war has been there all this while, including with Nadav, right? This is war. In our final two verses, there was war between Asa and Baasha. In the third year of Asa, king of Judah, Baasha, the son of Ahiah, became king over all Israel at Tisra, and he reigned for 24 years. So we can add another one here. 24 years. This is 41. And so here would be 24 years. Baasha, 24 years. And when Baasha died, his replacement was in the reign of Asa. And so because Asa reigned for 41 years, a very long time. And Baasha did evil in the sight of the Lord. Again, I just want to highlight all these key words. It repeats itself. I hope you pick it up. Evil, good, wrong, right, grace. Everything is in the eyes of the beholder. In this case, God looked at what Baasha did, and it was wrong, and he walked the way of Jeroboam, which is idolatry, and in his sin into which he misled Israel, it means he caused Israel to sin. And therefore, you find Jeroboam, Nadav, Baasha, being from Issachar, continued this sin of idolatry that Jeroboam started. And thereby, in the eyes of God, it didn't matter whether you're from Ephraim or from Issachar, you are the king of Israel. And if you are not there with God, loyal to God, then God will deal with them. And with this, I hope that we now have a good idea of how time is measured from the ascension to the throne to the death of a king. And so the kings of the north and south are juxtaposed to show us when one happened before the next. And with this, we've come to the end of our session today.